Now, many of you have aspirations to be a pro player, and I don't blame you. Honestly, the pro life seems really freaking sick, and the only big problem is that it's very, very competitive. Because the lifestyle is so appealing, every single person wants to become a pro in esports. And one of the biggest problems with trying to become a pro is that for many games, the esports scene is already cemented, and it's very difficult to push through and become that pro player. Now, if you feel like you've missed out on your chance to be a top tier esports player, Halo Infinite now presents you with another opportunity to do so. Not only is Halo the perfect game for esports, but it's going to dominate the esports scene for the foreseeable future, and I'm going to break down exactly why that is and what you can do to prepare yourself if you want to climb the ranks incredibly high, become a streamer, or get on a pro team. Now, before we get started, please smash that like and subscribe and support this channel. We're going to be doing tons and tons of uploads about lore, news, and guides, so don't miss out and smash that like and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, the first thing that you need to understand about Halo is that it has deep history in esports. Now, while Halo hasn't been a PC game, for the Xbox community, Halo was one of the OG FPS games that people took very competitively. A lot of your most known streamers like Ninja and Nick Merckx got their start driving to events and playing in LAN console esports events. And this was a very big thing that had sponsors eventually and big teams. And even as recently as Halo 5, esports has been pretty thriving, at least for console only FPS standards. Now, that being said, with this being the first Halo that is not going to be console exclusive, it's going to be opening it up to the premier esports platform PC, which also means more overall fans and just extra hype to go around, not to mention the fact that this is going to be a free-to-play game to play the multiplayer. Now, the next thing that you need to understand about Halo Infinite is that Halo is inherently fair and purely skill-based. One of the biggest complaints about battle royales in general is they often rely on a point system, which is terrible for esports, which I'll talk about later on down the video. But ultimately, it feels very unfair when things are based on a certain amount of RNG when you're trying to loot, and you can get consistently third-partied, which doesn't really seem like a fair fight and doesn't really feel that great for esports in general. Now, Halo is 4v4 with, yes, diverse weaponry, but they're unknown spawn timers, so nothing is random, and of course, they're in very hard to contest areas, which force conflict so no one camps. Now, the next thing that you need to understand about Halo is that tons of esports orgs have already been heavily investing into Halo teams. There have been many of the top tier orgs already putting together their own Halo roster or searching for Halo players to play on their team. Now, this means there's already money moving into Halo from day one, which is a really good thing for the esports scene as a whole, and my confidence in Halo becoming a profitable esport that has a thriving scene where players can potentially go pro in, because people have to care about it, and especially orgs have to exist in it. There are so many games where the orgs just don't have teams at all. Now, in addition to this, 343, the developers of Halo Infinite, is going above and beyond to support esports. Not only are they putting tournaments at the forefront and they're putting large amounts of prize pools together, but they're going a step further where they're actually going to allow organizations to have skins that they design put into the game, and any player that wants to rep their favorite team can purchase a skin that matches an org, and a percentage of the proceeds will go to the org. This gives extra incentive for orgs to actually push money onto players and potentially pay out down, like a trickle down. Even the tier 2 teams, everyone's going to want to do this because the orgs can make direct money from skin sales, which would be amazing. And it adds an extra layer of just your average person being able to get hyped about their team of choice. All in all, it's just a really great idea, and it intermingles regular play with esports play. Now, the next thing I need to talk about is something that I don't think is talked about enough about esports, and it's the watcher's perspective. How easy is it for a brand new player or someone that doesn't play the game a lot to watch and understand what's going on? Just to be able to watch very easily and, you know, not have to know extensive knowledge, because this is something that can be very confusing. In a game like Overwatch, for instance, it can be very complicated to know what is happening at all if you're not an expert at the game. Unlike traditional sports where it's pretty simple, things seem pretty obvious, you know, you get to the finish first or you score more goals by the end of the clock. It's pretty obvious, but esports has not always been that way. And if we talk about a battle royale system, sometimes the team that wins the final round is not the team that actually wins the entire thing, because it's on a point-based system over multiple battle royale modes in the pro scene, There's a lot of other games that don't really work that well from a watcher's perspective, and while they're great for people that have complex knowledge in the matter, Halo is perfect for bringing outsiders in because it's not overly complicated. 4v4 is very simple. Capture the flag is a very obvious mode to understand, and other modes like Slayer or even Oddball, where you're holding an objective for a certain amount of time as the time ticks up. These are very simple concepts to understand, and I think are going to be great for watching from esports, even for the casual viewer. Now, one of the things that you need to understand about Halo Infinite that we briefly touched upon is that this is going to be most PC players' starting point, which actually matters a lot if you want to climb the ladder and compete with the best of them at the top of the leaderboard. Because you got to understand that while a game like Valorant was pretty new and it was possible for a lot of people to compete, in fact, many people have climbed all the way to the highest rank even when they never touched CSGO, a lot of people had to compete with thousands and thousands of hours of CSGO to directly compete with them. And there are a lot of pro players that exist in Valorant that if all of the CSGO pros swapped over, these Valorant pros might have a lot of competition or maybe not even have jobs, because there are many CSGO pros that are just being paid so much that they're disincentivized to swap over, not based on their lack of skill. And I say all this to state the fact that for PC players starting Halo, you're going to be on a much more even playing field. Not that people didn't play Halo competitively before, they certainly did, but a lot of those players are going to stay on console if they're recent Halo players and they're going to be primarily playing on console, or they played Halo a long time ago and they swapped to PC, and many of those players didn't purely play Halo for the competition. There was a lot of other reasons to play Halo, especially if we talk about the older Halos, and Halo has changed a lot since then. Now, the last thing that we need to talk about is what can you do to practice if you want to give yourself an advantage going into Halo when it launches, and the Halo launch is just a month away. What can you do to set yourself up for the most success? Well, you definitely could play Halo Master Chief Collection to get a better feel for Halo as a whole, even though the new Halo is going to definitely feel a lot different. You could play a game that has very similar movement and shooting style of gunfights and the longevity of gunfights that happen in Halo, which is something similar to Apex Legends if you really wanted to go that route, even though there's a lot of differences like the Battle Royale mode and just the sheer size of the maps in Apex Legends compared to Halo. And then you could also play a game like Splitgate that is pretty similar, even though when you get to a certain level in Splitgate, a lot of the high tier gameplay is centered around the portals, which doesn't emulate Halo at all, so I don't know if that would be the greatest. But you could always just practice aim traders and build up your raw mechanical aim in setting you up for Halo. Remember, that mechanical skill is going to be very important, especially for us PC players, because there's going to be a certain baseline of required mechanical skill, because there's still going to be a rival of console players that have a lot of experience in the game, and they do have aim assist. While not overpowered and definitely balanced in Halo, it's definitely going to mean that as a console player, you're going to have to aim at a certain level to reach parity with them. You can't have below average mechanics if you want to compete at all, so definitely keep that in mind. And if your mechanics are lacking, you need to start grinding them right away. But if you have any questions about Halo Infinite and esports, definitely let me know down below and share your specific insight about Halo. Is it a game that you want to climb and reach the top tier ranks and maybe even go pro? I want to know your opinion about all that down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.